everybody. It is time for Rocky Top Review on Mix 1041, Talk 1013, and Mix TV. I'm Steve Hardline. Rocky Top Reviews presented by CHI Memorial. CHI Memorial, Imagine Better Health. And as we tape this on Friday, we come on the air. I'm joined by, of course, Stephen Shelton, Jason Cox. Guys, good afternoon. Here ahead of a Tennessee at Arkansas 7:30 primetime game.
Hey, Steve. How are you, buddy?
We're doing good. Jason, Shelton, you guys, it's been a couple weeks.
Oh, I'm just happy to be talking about something other than the election.
Yeah,
so it's no, it's been like I said, good off week last week. Some good games. Watched some good games. So excited to be back.
Jason, we're going to go back here a little bit and talk about the Tennessee loss of a couple of weeks ago.
Sure. I mean, I think most Tennessee fans right now have a pretty bad taste in their mouth. Anytime you get whipped by one of your what you consider a bitter enemy, then that hurts. But honestly, the bitter taste in Tennessee fans' mouth right now isn't the Alabama loss. Shelton, we expected that. We expected to get trucked in that game. It stinks, but that's just where we're at. The bitter taste in my mouth is still that Kentucky loss. That's just what stings. That's what everybody feels right now. If we don't win this week, the program's sunk. The reason we feel that way is because of that Kentucky loss, not the Alabama loss.
Well, for me, it's both, and I'll tell you why. Not the loss so much against Alabama as the inability to compete. And right now, the Tennessee football program is no better shape than it was during Butch Jones' era, and that's the plain truth. When you look at their inability to compete, when you look at the lack of motivation, when you look at the coaching turnover, when you look at the lack of coaching, the lack of ability to get these guys prepared to go on every Saturday, and we continue to hear about all the great recruits we're getting, all the 5 stars and 4 stars and top 10 recruiting classes. When you have those things and you have the inability to compete, and that doesn't mean you're going to win every game, but to compete on an SEC level, then it's probably time to review the entire program.
And I'm shocked over it. I just feel like we've got some football coaches in Knoxville, and they've got track records of being football coaches. So I don't understand what the miss is here, other than the quarterback situation.
And again, not all great coordinators make great head coaches. Not all great head coaches make great coordinators. I think Steve Spurrier would have been an awful coordinator. Just because if you were a head coach and told him to do something, he'd probably do whatever he wanted to.
He'd just throw it deep.
Absolutely. And so I just think there's some people built to be head coaches. I'm not saying that Jeremy Pruitt is. Let's not run him out of town just yet. But it's just inexplicable at this point how you can't get you're in year 3, and this week in the press conference, Jeremy Pruitt said our guys are starting to buy in. And he was talking about the defensive side of the ball. Well, number one, you were brought in because you were a great defensive mind. You're in year 3, and you're still talking about getting your guys to buy in. They should not even bought in. They should be helping you sell it to the younger players at this point. And so I think there's just a lot of trouble in Knoxville, and I'm afraid that this thing is really going to run off the rails.
Well, and I think the last 5 games here is going to be a referendum on Jeremy Pruitt. I mean, I think we just had a referendum on a certain president of people who didn't vote for the other guy. They voted against somebody.
Sure.
I think that's what's been going on, and I think that's what's going to happen with Jeremy Pruitt. This happened last year. We came out of the gate slow. We stumbled, and then he got it going. So can we do that again? I think that's what all Tennessee fans hope to happen, and maybe Jeremy Pruitt and his crew, they're just slow starters.
All right, that is the state of play here as we come on the air. Again, Tennessee at Arkansas, a 7:30 game tonight, as we will have coverage here on Mix 1041, Talk 1013, as well as we'll have more coverage coming up. All right, let's go around the SEC. Of course, we've been doing that in this season. We have shifted our focus, and we've got a lot of good comments about that, and that is staying with the SEC. It's Vanderbilt taking on Mississippi in Starkville, and a game that includes 2 teams trying to find any footing in the SEC. The Commodores look to anchor down while Mike Leach looks to keep the ship from sinking. Vanderbilt comes in 0-4 Ole Miss 1-4. Shelton, what do you think?
Well, I mean, if you look at this Mississippi State team, it is really incredible to think that in the first week of this season, they shocked the world by beating the number 6 ranked LSU Tigers, which I said was the overranked team in the nation. We've seen that. But since that 44-34 victory over LSU, Mississippi State has been outscored 114-30. It is unbelievable. Mike Leach was brought in for one thing, and that's offense. And the last thing he has been able to deliver is offense. That they have just been dismal. But as bad as they have been, they haven't been as bad as Vanderbilt. And as I told Jason off the air before we got started, this game is basically he and I painting 2 walls in the same room and watching to see which one dries first. I mean, this is an incredible, awful football game to be a part of and to watch. And if they draw 12,000 at this game, I'll be surprised.
You know, this is a game that I just can't imagine anybody outside of these two teams is going to want to watch at all. But if you ever play football games on the video game system, on PlayStation or whatever, there's a defense that nobody runs in real life, but everybody runs it on the PlayStation. It's called like the dollar. And you just basically drop everybody back in coverage and rush one guy or whatever. And that's what the defenses have started doing against Leach. So there's nowhere to throw it. Costello, whoever's the quarterback at the time, throws it up, throws interceptions. And they figured that out after the LSU game. But did you know that Vegas has Mississippi State as a 19-point favorite in this game?
I would take that all day. I mean, I'm not a betting man, Steve. I don't know what that means, but
oh wow!
But
it is legal in
19
Tennessee.
19 point
I
spread.
couldn't believe that when I saw it.
Yeah, and you're talking about Costello for Mississippi State. He is 134 of 207, 1,283 yards this year. He has 6 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. He is literally the Andy Kelly of Mississippi State.
Didn't he have 5 or 6 touchdowns in the first game?
He threw 5, I think, in the first game. Had 1 since then, I believe.
That's terrible.
But no,
you guys going to make a pick on this game or
is that time for that? We only have 4 games to
spending
cover.
lots of time on a bad
Oh, we
game.
only have
We have 4 games this week.
Okay.
I mean, I thought we'd spend more.
Okay, fine.
Spread
it. I mean, keep going. I don't care.
This is called field time, Steve. It's radio term we use.
I've heard of it. I've heard of it from about 7 to 9 every morning, 5 days a week. Trust me.
For the last 20 years.
Are you still talking about Bridget and her knee? Is that still a thing along?
You know what? Give me Mississippi State. The old patch gets put back on, and Mike gets this thing routed in the right direction for 1 week. And by the way, as bad as we just said Mississippi State was, they'll have the same record as Tennessee after this week.
Yeah. Who doesn't love a pirate, right?
Wow.
Give me Mississippi State as well.
All right, guys. Well, it's the game of the weekend in the SEC. It's, number 8 Florida, number 5 Georgia. They'll play at what they call the world's largest cocktail party. Not going to be as large this year. I don't know about the crowd size, but they always play in Jacksonville. That game is underway as you listen to this or watch our show today. 3:30 they started the CBS national game. Held in Jacksonville, Florida, all but twice since the 1930s. This battle of SEC rivals continues to be a highlight on each team's schedule and should once again decide who wins the SEC East. Guys, before you talk about it, I will say I've talked to some Georgia fans recently who say that they feel like their biggest rival, Shelton, is Florida.
It is now. I think it was at one point. You could say years ago. You could say Clemson, South Carolina. Some of those schools they traditionally played. Tennessee, maybe Georgia Tech. It comes to mind. But I think now over the last decade and a half, it's no doubt this is their rivalry game. This is the biggest game of the year for them. And Florida, it could be. Some people say Tennessee, some people say Florida State. But for Georgia fans, this is it. This is and rightfully so, because this usually, or for the last decade, has decided the SEC East. But when I look at Florida, I'm glad they're able to get their votes in a lot faster than Georgia did. But I know we're not going to talk about that today. But Georgia has a 3-game winning streak. They're 4-0. This is very important for Kyle Trask. This is his Heisman Trophy game. This will either make or break him as a Heisman Trophy candidate, a legitimate Heisman Trophy candidate. Now, is he a candidate thus far? Absolutely. He's 95 of 139, 1,341 yards. He's thrown 18 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. That's a Heisman Trophy candidate if there ever was one. However, there's always one game that either makes or breaks, whether it be Baker Mayfield or whether we can go all the way down the line. There's one game that makes or breaks Heisman Trophy winners or and definitely candidates, and this is his game. He's going up against a very, very good defense for Georgia, and that that's just allowing 300 yards per game, Jason. But it's basically, to me, it's Kyle Trask versus the Georgia defense.
Yeah, Florida's going to be without several players. They were involved in a brouhaha last week. Dan Mullen pulled his best Michael Buffer impersonation.
Let's just. How in the world is Dan Mullen in this game?
Oh,
he is the first person on the field. He is the one that started this entire altercation going into halftime. How in the world does the SEC commissioner look at him and say, "We're going to give you a fine, but don't do that again"?
It wasn't like $10,000.
Yeah,
they fined Pruitt $100,000 for wearing his face covering over his head.
Yeah, the ET cover.
Yeah.
I just don't understand it.
It's bizarre. So Florida's without several players. However, Georgia's without their all-world safety, Richard LeCount. He was in a motorcycle accident this week. And so the secondary probably got a little softer there for Kyle Pitts and Kyle Trask on the Florida offense. And so it's going to be an interesting battle. I picked Florida to win the SEC East. In fact, I think I stuck my neck a little too far out and said they might win the SEC. But to do that, they've got to win this week. And so I'm going to take Florida in a close one over the Dogs.
I'm actually taking Georgia. I said Georgia will win the SEC East. I think Georgia's defense is better than Florida's offense. I think Georgia's linebackers. The key to this is Georgia's linebackers can stay with Pitts when he runs those cross patterns. I think they have the athletes to do that, to slow them down, and I really think Georgia can get some pressure on Trask, which up to this point really hasn't happened.
But do you think Stetson Bennett can do enough?
Well, here's the problem with Stetson Bennett. When we look at this, Kyle Trask has thrown 18 touchdowns in 4 games. That's 4 or more every game. On the other side of the ball, we look at Stetson Bennett. He has thrown 5 interceptions and 2 touchdowns in his last 2 games. I don't think Stetson Bennett is the answer in Georgia. I think he's been the Band-Aid to get them to this point. I think they have better quarterbacks sitting there, but it's almost like we're continuing to win and compete. Do we really, for Kirby Smart, do we really want to take him out of that rotation? Do we want to take him out and kind of disrupt our offense? So I think that Stetson Bennett is the key for Georgia in this game, but I really think defense wins this game for Georgia. Defensive front, defense, and those linebacker core slowing down that passing game for Florida.
All right, it is Georgia, Florida, always big. And as you listen and watch, that game is underway. We're going to take our first break on the Rocky Top Review broadcast, Mix 104.1, Talk 101.3, and Mix TV. For our radio listeners, we're heading to a 7:30 kickoff tonight. Tennessee in Fayetteville playing Arkansas, and a huge, just a huge game for UT to get back on track, as the guys have been telling you about. And look at those new graphics, guys. Look at what Austin has. We're on the field here. Look at that. Is that turf or grass?
I'm thinking grass in the middle there. I think it's turf, though, on each side of us.
Pretty good.
A little dividing line there. I like that.
Not bad. Neyland Stadium below. And great job, as always, Austin Chadwick producing our broadcast. All right. This break, CHI Memorial. CHI Memorial, imagine better health. They have flu shots. Don't have to get out of your vehicle. At Memorial Convenient Care in the Public Shopping Center, Paula Parkway in Cleveland. And we'll come back in just a moment. Back with more Rocky Top Review, Mix 104.1, Talk 101.3, and Mix TV. Mix TV is our new digital TV channel. Find it at mymix1041.com. Back with Jason Cox, Stephen Shelton, as we take a tour around the SEC. Not many games today. Back to the Florida-Georgia game for a moment. You guys know about crowd size at all today?
Well, it's in Jacksonville, and they hold about. So you're probably going to look in at Florida. Right, what they're doing, it's 25,000 maybe max. Yeah. What they're going to let in. So.
I guess, did you hear UT basketball? Men and women only going to let 4,000 in Thompson Bowling this season.
I'm just going to be honest. I really think the basketball season may get punted a little bit before this is over with. I think with the numbers rising and it being an indoor sport. There's no question about what the moneymaker is for NCAA, and that's football, and then March Madness. That's where they make their money. So for the NCAA, they have nothing to lose if they start after the first of the year. I'm not saying they will, but I really think that may be the way we're headed to get teams maybe healthy a little more, get the COVID down, and then turn them loose after the first of the year.
But as a Tennessee fan, I don't want that at all. Tennessee's going to be really, really
Yeah.
good on the hardwood this year, so do not punt that if you can.
But then also an interesting article in the Chattanooga Times Free Press earlier this week. Stephen Hargis went over and interviewed Bernard Childress, the executive director of TSSAA, who is now putting some doubt in the high school basketball and high school wrestling.
I'd bet my house that wrestling doesn't happen and basketball doesn't happen until after the first of the year, and maybe not. And so just from the standpoint of the risk versus reward at this point, and when you've got games that struggle now, take Bradley County for example. If you don't have a Cleveland Bradley, Cleveland Walker Valley, Walker Valley Bradley, if you don't have one of those three games, basketball is not a money maker. There's a lot of expense that goes into basketball, and so when you don't have that, and you can only bring in 50% or less into these gyms, you're breaking even at best.
I had a middle school athletic director basically tell me the same thing about middle school basketball this week. All right, let's. So this is all swirling around as we know. Again, we're taping here on a Friday. Just make sure who knows what happens Saturday. Anyway, Texas A&M, South Carolina. They'll play tonight. Also a 7:00 kickoff. UT at 7:30. Texas A&M, South Carolina. That's at William Bryce Stadium in Columbia. As the Aggies at 4-1 will stroll into Williams Bryce with all the confidence in the world after taking down that scrappy Arkansas team 42-31 last Saturday. Jason, we're going to begin with you.
Well, Kellen Mond comes in riding a hot hand for Texas A&M. He got off to a very slow start down there, but he has found his groove, playing well. Running back Isaiah Spiller has kind of become the man down there as well. Colin Hill, Shy Smith on the Gamecock side, a couple playmakers that we saw early in the season. I think this game will be competitive. I'm starting to buy into Shelton's idea that Texas A&M is probably the second best team in the West, and so I do think they're on paper better than South Carolina, but Will Muschamp always seems to be able to find one game where he can pick somebody off. They beat Georgia last year. Could this be the game that Will Muschamp upsets Texas A&M?
Well, lifetime Jimbo Fisher's 5-1 against Will Muschamp at their time with Florida and Florida State, and now Texas A&M and South Carolina. Like I said, I thought Texas A&M would be the second best team in the SEC West. Just looking at them and knowing what Jimbo does with his coaching staff. So when I look at this South Carolina team, though, it's almost like are these the same guys we played in Week 1? I mean, they look totally different offensively. They look a lot better defensively, and so. But Texas A&M, they had that loss to Alabama, but other than that, they've really got it rolling. Kellen Mond, you have to think about this. When you think of Texas A&M football and you think of quarterbacks, you automatically go to one guy,
Johnny Football.
Exactly. Kellen Pond last week had 260 yards against Arkansas and has become the all-time leading passer for the Aggies. That tells you how good this guy really is. I mean, because Johnny Football I watched Texas A&M just to watch Johnny Football back then, because he would just run around like the backyard and sling it up, and here we go. And so they have a balanced attack on the ground, in the air. I think it's enough to get by South Carolina. I do think it's ultra competitive. This game is, especially in South Carolina. But give me Texas A&M on the road. They moved to 5-1, and really, other than one hiccup against Alabama, this team could look for a really big bowl game at the end of the year.
Yeah, I think Texas A&M is probably gonna win this game, but I do think it'll be close. I think it'll be competitive, and if I have the choice of watching a game, it's going to be this one over the Vanderbilt Mississippi State game for sure.
Oh yeah.
All right, we're going to take our second break and come back and talk about the preview of the Tennessee-Arkansas game. Fans, this reminder, download the free Mix 1041 app. It's presented by CHI Memorial. Download the app at mymix1041.com. You can win our Black Friday shopping blowout, $1,000 in cash, plus free breakfast courtesy of Chick-fil-A. Download the Mix 1041 app at mymix1041.com. Again, it's free thanks to CHI Memorial. And you can also listen to today's UT game, Tennessee, Arkansas tonight at mymix1041.com or on the Mix 1041 app. We're back with the final segment, Rocky Top Review. Back in a moment. Back with a final segment, Rocky Top Review, presented by CHI Memorial on Mix 104.1, Talk 101.3, and Mix TV. Ahead of the collision tonight, Tennessee and Fayetteville, Arkansas, 7:30 kickoff right here on our stations, Mix 104.1 and Talk 101.3. The Tennessee Volunteers coming off their bye week in hopes of ending a 3-game losing streak. Yeah, ugly losses to Georgia, Kentucky, and Alabama currently have the program reeling and searching for answers. Jason, we're going to begin with you.
Well, I need to take a sidestep here. You mentioned digital TV a minute ago.
Yeah.
I've known you a long time, Heartline.
Yeah.
So going back to our high school days.
Yeah.
I've always heard that you had the voice for radio, or the face for radio.
Yes.
So how does that work with digital TV? That you have a face for radio, but now you're on TV?
I just don't understand. I think that's a wonderful question.
I've enjoyed watching us on digital TV.
A lot of people want to know that.
You know, this is a game. I think Tennessee comes in 2-3. Arkansas 2-3. Should be 3-2 actually. You know, this is a game of quarterbacks. This is a game of quarterbacks that have kind of been cast off. Jarrett Garantano is the quarterback nobody wants in Tennessee. Felipe Franks is the quarterback nobody wanted in Florida. I think this is the classic game where the team that makes the fewest mistakes is going to win. Arkansas has made a living this year on turning the other team over. That's how they've been competitive. That's how they've won the games they have. Their defensive backs have 10 interceptions. Our defensive backs can't catch a ball, and so they have been opportunistic. They have done well when they've got the turnover, and so they come in, and I really think the team that makes the fewest mistakes, that they take care of the football. They don't have the personal foul penalties. They don't have the ridiculous false start penalties over and over and over again like we've seen. I think that team will win the game. What do you think, Shelton?
Oh, well, here's what I think. I think Tennessee football is in some of its darkest moments in the last, even in the last decade, because expectations were high and they've been just dismal. Tennessee leads this series all time 13-5. They won 6 in a row back when this game was played almost every year from '93 to '98. They've not won in Fayetteville since 2001, though. So this is a place they don't do very well at. Tennessee can't convert on third downs. It's dead last with only converting 26% on third downs, which is the worst in the SEC. They're even worse in keeping the ball. They 26.21 minutes of time of possession. This passing attack has not thrown for over 200 yards in the last 3 of 4 games. We've got a quarterback that was booed when he was announced as a starter against Alabama in the stadium, which is just unheard of. We have going against Arkansas team that's 93rd ranked defensive line, and we have the 29th ranked offensive line in the nation, and I just don't think it matters. Felipe Franks beat us with a Hail Mary when he was at Florida. He knows how to beat Tennessee. He loves to beat Tennessee. But this Razorback defense held Ole Miss to only 21 points, the lowest point total of the season. Barry Odom knows how to beat Tennessee from the time when he was with Missouri. He knows the formula to do that. I think when you look at this Arkansas team, they were a team that was picked almost dead last in the SEC West. They're going to finish in the middle of the pack. I think Tennessee goes. I think Garantano shows once again why he's not an SEC quarterback. I think unless we establish the run game and really pound it very, very well the entire game, I think you're going to see that Tennessee once again has no faith in maybe Jim Chaney as well, no faith in Garantano. I think Tennessee goes to Fayetteville. I think they're handed their 4th loss of the year. I think Tennessee ends up being 3-7 at the end of the season.
Did somebody kick your dog this morning or something?
I don't have a dog, but they have kicked my Tennessee team for the last 15 years, and I'm tired of expectations not being halfway fulfilled and not competing on the field. This team, this program, if they finish 3-7, let's blow the whole thing up. Let's start all over again. I don't care. We keep giving these coaches, they win 4 or 5 games, we give them an extension. You know, Pruitt wins 7 games last year. Let's give him an extension and a raise. I just cannot fathom how we continue to reward mediocrity. In any other industry except the polling industry in national elections, is mediocrity or their lack of rewarded. And it just puzzles me how you can get Sam Pittman to take over in Arkansas and they look 10 times better than Tennessee. You take a guy that was a reject from Florida, you take him to Arkansas, he looks like he could play for any team in the SEC. It's just inexplicable. I'm tired of the excuses. I'm tired of people putting in their hard-earned dollars up there to make this program the best it can be and getting nothing in return.
Wow. All right. Well, I think we know how he feels, don't you, Hartline?
I think so, yeah.
Let me tell you a little bit about Arkansas, just so you know some names. Rakeem Boyd is their running back. He's been there forever. He's a big bruiser of a running back. Had over 100 yards last week against Arkansas. Traylon Burks, Davion Warren are their wide receivers that's going to catch the most passes from Felipe this week. And then, as I mentioned, their defensive backs do a really, really good job in coverage. And so Garantano has to take care of the ball. And you know, we've been down on Garantano a lot, but he played pretty well against Alabama. Now he's not a playmaker. We know that, but he took care of the ball. He didn't have the big turnovers like he had been. Tennessee comes into this game, and they had the off week. My folks in Knoxville tell me they just focused on themselves. They worked on tackling. They worked on closing the middle of the field on the defense. Thank you very much. They worked on creating a pass rush. They have to get two young guys in the game this week to help create that pass rush. Morven Joseph and Tyler Barron have to play more because those upperclassmen are not getting it done on the defensive line. Tennessee's got to take care of the football. They've got to tackle in space. We've got to run the ball with Eric Gray and Ty Chandler, okay? And then I think we throw the long ball a lot this week. Jalen Hyatt has proven, he's a freshman, he's proven he can blow the top off of a defense, which is just something we've not had in a few years. Somebody that can blow that top off, and that opens up the middle of the field. Now, Garantano throwing to the middle of the field is dicey, but nonetheless, if those safeties have to drop back because they're afraid they're going to get burnt, Jalen Hyatt, Josh Palmer can do that for you. So I think from my perspective, Shelton, this is what I would call a directional game. Arkansas's headed one direction, which is up. Tennessee feels like we're headed down. I still say it's all about that Kentucky loss, though, headed down. And whoever comes out of this game as the victor is going to keep heading in that direction. Tennessee wins, they reverse course, they head upward, okay? And Arkansas begins to ask questions. How did we lose to a bad Tennessee team? If disaster happens like you're calling for, okay, I almost feel like you want it to happen. But if that happens, Tennessee gets beat. We got
about 1 minute, guys.
And Tennessee gets beat, we are in trouble.
Jalen Hyatt is the best deep threat that we've had in 10 years at Tennessee by far, maybe since Patterson was there. I agree with that. Again, I'll agree with a lot of things you just said, but if Tennessee doesn't win this game, the only win left is Vanderbilt. We go 3-7.
Yeah, give me Tennessee.
All right. Guys, thanks again. And for Jason Cox, Stephen Shelton, Steve Hartline, Austin Chadwick, our producer, thank you so much for joining us for Rocky Top Review, presented by CHI Memorial. Get ready. It's kickoff of Tennessee at Arkansas, 7:30, right here on Mix 104.1 and Talk 101.3 The Buzz. We'll see you next week. Now to the Ball Network.